Revealed, fired for helping a homeless woman, then an incredible mafia boss surprises her as Mom Lisa stood behind the counter of the little diner, bustling with activity. The coffee pot never seemed to leave her side, and her apron was stained with the happenings of a busy day. But the heart of the diner wasn't the food, it was Lisa, a beacon of kindness. Often, her tips found their way into the palms of Mary, a homeless woman with a weathered smile who always found a corner booth at the diner. On a particularly gray afternoon, Lisa snuck Mary a steaming plate of meatloaf, only to have her boss, Mr. Jenkins, catch her in the act. "You're gonna ruin this place with your charity," he barked, fists clenched, as coldness filled the room. The words hit Lisa harder than she expected. Tears stung her eyes, frustration swelled in her chest. She had always believed in kindness, that every act could ripple through the community like a stone dropped in still water. But here she was, fired for doing what felt right. Clutching her apron, she stormed out, her heart heavy but her spirit unbroken. She felt the loss as if it were a physical weight, a cold, stark reminder of her dwindling dreams. With no diner to call her own, she started her search for work, but everywhere she turned, rejection greeted her. Friends turned to pitying glances, and she could feel the walls closing in as financial despair began to gnaw at her insides. One chilly night, just when she thought she couldn't go on, she spotted Mary huddled beneath a ragged blanket. "You hungry, Mary?" she whispered, shivering as she handed over her last couple of bucks for a warm meal. Unbeknownst to Lisa, that humbling act of compassion did not go unnoticed. Tony, a mafia boss bearing the heavy burden of regret from his past, had observed her from a distance after a meeting gone awry. In his world, kindness was a scarce commodity, and Lisa's actions ignited something within him, a flicker of warmth that he had long buried. It was like the first sunshine breaking through a long winter. The very next day, Tony entered the diner, walking in like he owned the place. Lisa noticed him, her heart racing. He approached her directly, and in an unexpected moment of vulnerability, he shared a glimpse of his life, all the darkness that twisted around his heart, all the regret for what he couldn't change. Her initial fear began to fade as he revealed what had compelled him, the way she cared so deeply for Mary. "Listen, Lisa," Tony said, leaning closer, "I want to help you. Not just with money, but with what you're doing for others." His offer made her heart leap, but she hesitated. Could this be real? A mafia boss wanting to uplift instead of control? But deep down, she felt the undeniable connection they shared, a common desire to bring change. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the days that followed, a partnership began to blossom between them. Together, they rallied support for those battling hardships like Mary. But with change came resistance, and outside pressures mounted as they worked to make a difference. Soon, Lisa found herself standing before a crowd of community members, her heart pounding. "We can do better by those in need," she declared, her voice rising with passion. But just as she was about to reach the tipping point of her message, a loud commotion erupted outside, shifting the focus. Life was poised on the edge of transformation, yet as the noise invaded the room, tension thickened. Would they embrace her call for change, or would the past bind them all? The noise outside grew louder, shaking the very foundation of the diner. Lisa's heart raced as she turned towards the door, anxiety creeping into her chest. The crowd in front of her was tense, eyes darting toward the source of the disturbance. Whispers rippled through the room, echoing uncertainty and fear. "Goodness, what now?" someone muttered, shifting uneasily in their seat. Tony stepped closer to Lisa, his presence both a comfort and a reminder of the chaos that often surrounded his world. "Stay here," he instructed, his voice low yet firm. The determination in his eyes set her a little more at ease, but tension hung thick like fog. "Shouldn't we go see what's happening?" Lisa suggested, her instinct to help battling against her fear. The encouragement she had just offered moments earlier felt fragile and fading like a distant dream. "No. Whatever's going on, it's not our fight." "Not today," Tony replied, a protective edge in his voice. Confusion washed over her. She could sense the struggle within him. The man who offered her hope was also entrenched in a world of chaos, a world she didn't fully understand. As the commotion outside escalated, shouts, angry voices, and the scrape of chairs moving, Lisa felt herself pulled in two directions: the urge to resolve the conflict and the desire to trust Tony's instincts. She took a deep breath, rallying her courage. "We can't just ignore it. What if someone needs help?" Tony paused for a moment, looking at her with an intensity that lingered. "It's not always that simple, Lisa. Sometimes we need to choose our battles wisely." Just then, a figure burst through the diner's door, breathing heavily. It was Derek, a local who often frequented the diner for his morning coffee. Panic settled on his face, and in a shaky voice he said, "It's Marcy. She's in trouble. I think they're coming for her." Lisa's heart raced. Marcy, another beloved member of the community, a single mother who had been struggling. "What happened?" she pressed, her voice shaking. "Some guys came by and started shouting about debts. It doesn't look good." The room fell silent. Lisa felt a wave of urgency crash over her. She couldn't sit by and let something terrible happen to someone who was already fighting hard enough against the odds. "We have to help her." Tony stepped in front of her, a mix of protectiveness and concern etched on his face. "This is what I mean, Lisa. You don't understand the danger involved." But her resolve had hardened. "No, I do understand. I know what it's like to feel trapped and helpless, just like Marcy. What kind of community do we have if we turn our backs?" In her heart, she knew that she could either stay hidden or step into the fray. And for Lisa, turning away felt like stepping into the darkness, a choice she simply wouldn't make. With a determined nod, she turned to the crowd. "Who's with me? We need to help Marcy." A wave of murmurs followed as some members of the crowd rallied to her side. Tony, though hesitant, caught the energy in the air. He took a breath and drew closer to her, his protective nature shifting. "All right. If we're doing this, we need a plan." As they crafted a strategy together, hope intertwined with the reality of the situation. But looming in the background was the reminder of the Mafia's hold, the weight of Tony's world pressing down once more. Would they save Marcy, or would past fears come crashing down on them all? As they stepped out of the diner, courage churning within Lisa and a deep apprehension resting in the back of Tony's mind, the first step into the chaos awaited. Would they emerge stronger, or would the darkness consume them all? The sound of chaos spilled from the street like a storm breaking loose. Lisa glanced at Tony, determination set in her eyes. She felt the weight of every heartbeat, hers and the community's, moving like a synchronized drum, leading them into the fray. Derek glanced nervously over his shoulder. "We should go fast. I saw one of the guys that came for Marcy hanging around the corners." "Let us move," Lisa said, raising the collar of her jacket against the chill. The group, now just a handful, began to filter out of the diner. Each step carried a mix of adrenaline and fear, but Lisa held on to hope. As they stepped into the street, the energy shifted. There was a thick layer of tension hanging in the air, and the shouts grew clearer. They were laced with anger and urgency. Lisa's heart pounded, but she pressed forward, her mind focusing on Marcy, sitting alone in her despair. "Where do we go?" Tony's voice came through, pulling her away from her thoughts. He scanned the street, eyes flaring with a protective intensity. The feisty spark that had ignited within Lisa had drawn him in. And for that moment, she could see the resolve blooming in him as well. "Down that alley," Derek shouted, pointing toward the narrow passage on the right. As they approached, Lisa felt the tension coil tighter. The noise crescendoed, harsh and unnatural, the kind that made skin prickle. They reached the mouth of the alley, pressing themselves close to the wall. The shout of men's voices echoed out, mingling with fear and anger. "Let us listen a moment," Tony suggested, cautious, but resolute. He motioned for everyone to crouch down. Peeking around the corner, Lisa's breath hitched. A group of tough-looking men crowded near the entrance to Marcy's apartment. Their faces were hardened, sharp, with jagged tattoos curling like vines along their arms. One of them leaned toward Marcy, who stood at a distance. Her face was pale, visibly shaken, and the tremor in her hands caught Lisa's attention. "We warned you. Pay up or you'll regret it," one of the men shouted, spreading a sense of dread through the air. "No," Marcy's voice rang out, filled with a fierce desperation. "I don't have it. You know I'm doing my best for my kids." Lisa's heart ached, a mix of anger and compassion flooding through her veins. She wanted to sprint toward Marcy, to scream that everything would be okay, but the danger hung thick like a fog, and Tony's hand rested firmly on her shoulder, grounding her. "We can't just stand here," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "We have to do something." Tony's grip tightened. "If we move, it gets worse. We need to wait for the right moment." But Lisa felt the fire in her gut. "I won't let them hurt her, Tony. I can't." Just then, from behind the men, a familiar figure stepped forward. Jenna, a local lawyer who had fought for the rights of so many in their community. She radiated strength, her presence commanding as she approached the group with a confident stride. "There's been a misunderstanding," Jenna said, raising a hand, her voice loud and clear, slicing through the tension like a knife. "You can't intimidate Marcy. She's got rights." The men paused, confusion etched in their faces. Lisa held her breath, waiting to see if Jenna's courage would shift the tide. Hope bloomed in Lisa's chest. They might just stand a chance if everyone worked together. But there was still something crucial hanging in the air. The threat of violence was palpable. "Stay behind us," Tony whispered to the group, tension etched on his face. They nodded, determined, but unsure of how the standoff would resolve. As the confrontation unfolded, it appeared that Jenna's arrival might just be the turning point. But as Lisa watched, her stomach twisted because shadows moved in the distance. Figures began emerging from the other end of the alley. Were they friends still, or had the darkness of Tony's world come to swallow them whole? "Who else is coming?" she thought, as the first glint of a familiar face caught her eye. Was this about to turn into the fight of their lives, or the lifeline they all desperately needed? The figures emerged from the haze, 3 silhouettes stepping from the shadows with a determination that sent shivers racing down Lisa's spine. She squinted, trying to make out their faces as the chaos around her blurred into a cacophony of shouts and rage. "Who are they?" Derek hissed, his eyes darting nervously. The tension thickened as one of the figures shone a light into the alley, illuminating a familiar face. Jason, a street artist known for changing walls into vibrant murals. But there was more than just Jason. A slight girl with wild curls was by his side, and behind them stood the familiar frame of Marcus, a local mechanic with a heart as big as his hands. "Jason." "Marcus," Lisa called out, her voice breaking through the din as they approached. Relief washed over her when she noticed Jenna's composure crumbling just a bit, signaling possible opponents turning allies. "We thought we could help," Jason shouted back, glancing nervously at the men blocking Marcy's path. "We heard what was happening and wanted to stand with Marcy. No one goes through this alone." Impressive boldness pulsed through the group as they squared off against the men, creating a block of bodies between them and the threat. Marcy's gaze flicked anxiously from Jenna to the new arrivals, hesitation woven through her expression. Was she ready to trust this makeshift army? "Hey," one of the men sneered, taking a step forward. "This is none of your business. Walk away while you can." Marcus stepped forward, his arms crossed and jaw tight. "Not a chance. You've pushed too far. Marcy has a right to stand her ground." The atmosphere crackled with intensity, hearts pounding in rhythm with trepidation. Lisa felt the surge of adrenaline push back the chill that had settled in her bones. She was part of something bigger now, a force of unity forged from love and a shared will. "Marcy," Lisa shouted, locking eyes with her friend. "You're not alone. You have people who care." The woman's expression brightened ever so slightly, hope flickering to life amid the fear. Freedom hung in the air like a spark, waiting to ignite, but the men weren't backing down easily. Their faces hardened and furious. Jenna shifted, seizing on the momentum. This is a violation of everything we stand for. You claim to own this neighborhood? You disrespect its heart by showing up here. Go, and we won't press charges, she declared, her voice unwavering. Lisa looked around, witnessing the atmosphere swell with collective resolve. The shadows of fear and uncertainty had transformed into a blazing determination, pulsating like wildfire. Everyone felt it, even her hands were shaking from a mix of fear and adrenaline. Then, just as the standoff reached a peak, another figure appeared, soaring down the alley. It was a woman in a leather jacket, her hair flowing like a banner behind her. Lisa could hardly believe her eyes. "Isn't it amazing when people come together?" the woman said, her voice smooth yet commanding. "I hope you're ready to reconsider your choices." Lisa's heart raced. Who is this woman? And how is she connected to the brewing storm? In a world already fraught with chaos, the arrival of this unexpected ally could either be the tipping point for salvation or spark a full-blown confrontation. As eyes shifted to the newcomer, Lisa felt the air grow even heavier with potential, the outcome still hanging by a thread. Uncertainty lingered thick, poised for a reckoning that no one could foresee. Is this the moment we take a stand? Lisa wondered, driven by a force she no longer recognized as only hers. It was a collective heartbeat, shifting the tides with a fierceness igniting deep within. But would they hold strong together, or shatter in the crucible of confrontation that was about to unfold? Would Lisa's hope turn into reality, or become just another dream lost in the chaos? The air crackled as the stranger stepped closer, her sharp gaze scanning the crowd, every inch of her radiating a fierce kind of confidence that ignited a flicker of hope in Lisa's heart. This wasn't just an ally, she was a force to be reckoned with. The tension was palpable, and the men blocking Marcy's way flinched at the sudden shift in the atmosphere. "Who even are you?" one of them growled, a mixture of anger and fear dancing in his eyes. She smiled slightly, a knowing curve of her lips that hinted at secrets untold. "Someone who knows this community inside and out. Someone who won't let bullies bully anymore. Step down now or you'll regret it." Marcy leaned forward, her expression filled with a blend of confusion and curiosity. She pressed her lips together, trying to squeeze out every ounce of strength she could muster. It was as if she were seeing her own reflection in this stranger, powerful, unyielding. "Listen, we don't want any trouble," one of the men said, squaring his shoulders. "That's really too bad," the woman replied coolly. "Because trouble found its way here the moment you attacked an innocent person." Jason stepped back, pulling Jenna toward him slightly, a protective move shining through his defiance. The group formed an even tighter circle around Marcy, an unyielding wall ready to protect what mattered most. Lisa's heart raced. This was it. They were drawing a line, and no one was stepping back. "Don't kids get to experience a little freedom anymore?" the woman continued, taking a few measured steps forward. "And when did it become cool to bully those who can't defend themselves?" As the words echoed in the alley, Lisa could see Marcy's confidence rising as well. It was like watching a flower unfurl in the sun. Marcy turned towards the men, her voice shaking but rising in volume. "I have every right to be here. You don't own this place. You can't scare me away anymore." That declaration breathed life into the confrontation. The tension twisted in the night air, thick, almost electric. The man who had sneered earlier shifted his weight, glancing back at his friends, their bravado momentarily shaken. "What is stopping us from just taking care of this now?" He spat, though it lacked conviction. "Us," Marcus said simply, his voice firm and resolute. They could feel the strength of every person gathered, every story, every struggle. "You underestimate what this neighborhood means to us. We're family here, and we fight together." Then the newcomer glanced back at them, a spark in her eyes. "That's right. But it's more than just a neighborhood. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it seems impossible." The sound of sirens wailed distantly in the background, adding a haunting reminder of the stakes at hand. Should they stand their ground? As the moment stretched on, Lisa felt butterflies clawing at her stomach. This was her chance to stand up, but what if it all came crashing down? With each heartbeat, she could sense that this was more than just a fight for Marcy's dignity. It was a battle for the soul of their community, and just as the flickering light seemed to cast shadows over the men's resolve, the woman in the leather jacket lifted her chin defiantly, making it known that she would not back down. "Let us make this one for the history books," she said, her voice low, impactful, as she turned to the group. "Ready to change the course of this night?" In that moment, an unspoken agreement passed between them. This fight wasn't just for Marcy, it was for everyone who had ever felt unseen, unheard. Would they emerge victorious, or would the tide of darkness swallow them whole? As the men tightened their fists and squared their shoulders, the question loomed larger than life. Was this the breaking point they had all been waiting for? The first punch landed like thunder in the still night, a sharp crack echoing off the walls. Lisa's heart dropped. This was it, they were committing to the fight. The chaos erupted around her as the men surged forward, desperate to assert their dominance. But her group stood firm, the newcomer at the forefront, leading the charge. "Take them down," she shouted, her voice fueling the fire in everyone else. Lisa felt a surge of adrenaline course through her. She couldn't back down now. She focused on Marcy, standing taller, emboldened by the fierce warrior at her side. It turned into a flurry of chaos. Students were grappling, shouting, and pushing against the men who had once seemed invulnerable. Lisa's mind raced as she swept her eyes across the scene. People she'd known for years were holding together, refusing to break in the face of fear. She spotted Jason, his eyes ablaze with determination as he tackled one of the bullies to the ground. "Let us go. We have to help," Lisa called out to her friends, pushing through the dust and roaring voices. She grabbed Marcy's arm, pulling her towards safety in the thicket of the standing crowd. Just then, Marcy turned, her face illuminated by courage. "No, we can't leave them. We have to fight." Those words hit Lisa square in the chest. She paused, struck by the fire in her friend's voice. Marcy, the girl they had all fought to protect, now demanded to protect them. Something inside Lisa snapped into place. This wasn't just Marcy's fight, it was a fight for them all, their home, their future. "All right," Lisa agreed, feeling the weight of resolve settle over her. They turned back toward the fray, eyes locked on the chaos in front of them. A wave of emotion pushed her forward. Marcy lifted her chin once again. "Together. We're stronger together." Around them, the group rallied once more, pulling in support from others who had begun to gather, drawn by the commotion. Faces they hadn't seen in years showed up, standing with them, lines drawn deep in the dirt like an invisible shield against the ones who misunderstood the meaning of power. The resulting clash was loud shouts, grunts, the collection of bodies colliding, but there was something more profound than the noise. As they mixed, a wave of unity washed over them, echoing through to the darkest corners of their community. This wasn't just fighting, it was reclaiming who they were. Suddenly, the woman in leather faced one of the men, fierce and unyielding. "This is your last chance. Stand down and walk away from this fight." For a moment, there was hesitation. The men exchanged glances, incredulity flaring across their faces. Uncertainty crept in as the crowd's energy surged and buzzed like electricity around them. "Do you think you can intimidate us just because you outnumber us?" The man spat, his voice betraying doubt. "You're trespassing. We're not afraid of you. This is our home. And you're outnumbered." Another voice shouted, echoing through the alley. Louder than ever, the true strength of their assembly showed in resilience. As if spurred by the words offered, the groups pressed forward, elbows clashing, feet shuffling against the asphalt. The surge filled Lisa with purpose. Community, acceptance, mutual understanding, it all melded into something much bigger than individual fights. In the midst of it all, she turned her gaze to Marcy. She was standing strong, embodying every ounce of the courage they'd fought for together. Then a shout rang out above the noise. "It's the cops!" Fear swept through the crowd, and Lisa felt an instinctive pull to protect Marcy, to ensure she wouldn't be caught up in whatever was about to unfold. What would happen when the authorities arrived? Would unity win out, or would everything shatter back into chaos? As sirens held closer, the eyes of the gathering all landed on one another, a question lingering in the air. Would they hold tight to the strength they had just forged, or would the looming threat disperse them like leaves in the wind? The sirens grew louder, piercing through the intensity of the fight. Hearts raced, each beat pumping adrenaline. Hope and fear danced in their chests like flames. Lisa's focus shifted. It wasn't just the confrontation anymore. The arrival of the police added a new layer of urgency. "Stay together," she yelled, grabbing Marcy's hand, squeezing it tight. She could feel Marcy's pulse, steady and strong, pulsing courage into her own veins. They were in this together. As the crowd stirred like a wild beast, people began to look around, searching for a way out. Some hesitated, glancing back at the brawling figures, unsure whether to stand their ground or scatter into the night. Lisa squeezed Marcy's hand again. "Don't let go." Suddenly, the leather-clad woman stepped back, her commanding voice breaking through the din. "Listen up. We have to stay united. If we break now, we let them win." Her eyes swept over the gathering group, igniting a renewed determination within them. They'd already come this far. They couldn't let fear dictate their next actions. "No arrests. We're not the ones who need to be afraid," the woman continued. Lisa took a deep breath, the weight of the leather woman's words settling over her. They had to hold on to this moment, the strength they'd discovered together. The first police car pulled around the corner, lights flashing, casting a surreal glow that washed over the alley. The men who had been fighting straightened up, glancing nervously at each other. They were losing control, and that realization was a powerful weapon for Lisa's group. The leather-clad woman pushed through the ranks. "All right, everyone. Line up. No fighting, just stand firm. They need to see we aren't afraid." A wave of murmurs rose. Would they really stand against the police? Would they be arrested? But Lisa could see it in their eyes. Fear was quickly being replaced by resolve. "Stay with me. We're standing up today," Lisa shouted, her voice resonating through the crowd. They took positions side by side, feet firmly planted on asphalt. The unity among them was palpable. They were a wall of strength. As the officers stepped out of their vehicles, Lisa felt a mix of dread and hope twist in her stomach. One officer, broad-shouldered with a stern face, eyed the gathered crowd. He walked forward, hands resting on his belt, scanning faces for trouble. "All right, everyone, what is going on here?" His voice echoed, firm yet uncertain. Lisa swallowed hard. "We're not causing trouble. We're standing together, defending our rights." Her chest tightened after she said it, but she pressed on. "We're tired of being bullied and we want to back down now." Someone shouted from the back, "We deserve to be heard." A cheer erupted, rallying the crowd. The confidence bounced back. It was contagious. Then, the leather-clad woman stepped in front of Lisa, taking a bold stance. "What we need is for you to see us not as a group to disperse, but as members of this community. We demand respect. We're not the problem." The officer hesitated, glancing back at his partner. There was a flicker of empathy, a slight softening in his expression. But still, they had a duty to uphold. How would he respond to the simmering energy radiating from the crowd? Silence filled the night, stretching on as tension hung in the air like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Would the police choose to listen, or would it all end in more chaos? The sirens continued wailing, but Lisa could almost hear the heartbeat of their collective strength pounding like a drum. What was about to unfold? Would they find a new path forward, or would the night plunge into darkness once again? The officer shifted his weight, tension crackling in the air. The crowd stood like a fortress, their bodies pressed together with a shared purpose, hearts synchronized with the pulse of the moment. A chorus of whispers spread through the gathering, blending apprehension with a sense of solidarity. "Do you hear that?" "It's our voices," Lisa thought, feeling Marcy's hand tighten around hers. They were more than a crowd now, they were a movement. The officer cleared his throat. "I need to know, are you all involved in this fight?" His gaze hovered over the leather-clad woman, who was standing tall, arms crossed defiantly. "No, we are just refusing to be silenced anymore," the leather-clad woman shouted back, her voice filled with gravitas. "We're tired of being treated like we don't matter. The officer shifted again, this time a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. To Lisa, it felt like he was weighing the crowd's collective spirit against the bluster of authority. Was he going to fight fire with fire, or was he ready to listen? Then, from the back, another voice rang out, a small, trembling sound, lost in the storm. "I just wanted to support my friend." A young boy stood there, trembling, fear etched on his face. Lisa felt her heart tug. "Hey!" she called out to him, pushing forward just a bit, her protective instincts kicking in. "You're brave for standing up, really. We're all together in this." The boy looked up, his eyes wide and pleading. It reminded Lisa of how small the world felt sometimes, and how essential this moment was for all of them. "See?" Lisa turned to the officer. "We're not here to create trouble. We're here to stand against it. We deserve respect, and we deserve to be seen for who we really are." The officer blinked, his expression softening a fraction more. Maybe he could hear them, she thought. Maybe he was willing to break through the barriers built by misunderstandings and assumptions. Around her, the crowd began murmuring encouragement, a wave of quiet strength rolling through them. They were afraid, but they were more afraid of the silence that came with inaction. Everyone's faces set into determination, hearts beating louder than the sirens. Could this moment lead to something larger? A ripple effect of change? Just then, the officer took a step closer, his partner still behind him, watching closely. "Listen, I can't make promises," but before he could finish, a loud shout erupted from the periphery. An older man stumbled forward, his coat tattered and eyes wild. "They're using you. You think your struggle is the same? You don't know what real fear is." The collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The urgency exploded again. What were they really up against? The officer's brow furrowed, uncertainty creeping back into the situation. "Shut up!" someone shouted, but Lisa stepped forward. "Wait. He's angry, and that's okay. We're all angry. But let us not fight each other. We need to stand united." Marcy squeezed her hand, whispering, "What if he's right, Lisa? What if we can't win?" Lisa felt the weight of the question. How real was their struggle? "I don't know," Lisa admitted, standing taller, "but we have to try. For all of us." The officer nodded, revealing a flicker of intrigue. Was this the breakthrough they were waiting for? Just as the hope began to swell like a tide, laughter burst out from somewhere in the crowd. A fresh wave of confidence surged, catching Lisa off guard. Then came a ripple of claps, an affirmation of strength shared among them all. It felt contagious, but amidst the rising noise, she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty lingering around them. And then, as if summoned by their collective pulse, shadows shifted at the edge of the alley. Figures emerged, dark silhouettes cloaked in mystery. Who were they, and what did they want? Was this the new threat or unexpected allies? The crowd hushed, tension returning, eyes wide with anticipation. What would happen next? Would they be embraced or face the unknown? The figures stepped forward, and as they emerged into the sickly glow of the streetlights, the crowd erupted with murmurs. Lisa strained to see their faces, confusion branding her thoughts like a hot iron. Were they here to help or divide? The shadows resolved into a group of 5 or 6. A tall man at the front wore a dark coat, a flat cap pulled low over his eyes. He swept his gaze across the crowd, and Lisa felt a chill skate down her spine. There was a certain power in his posture, a mingling of authority and something else, something darker. "Who are you?" The leather-clad woman took a step forward, her voice steady despite the tremors of uncertainty rippling through the crowd. "You don't need to worry." The man's voice was deep and flowing like honey, smooth, but laced with an undercurrent of danger. "We're here to listen." "Listen?" Marcy whispered, her grip on Lisa's hand tightening. "Listen to what?" "We hear you're looking for change," the man continued. "But change doesn't come from shouting into the void. You need allies who can make things happen." Lisa's heart raced at his words. Allies? Who are they? It felt like an offer wrapped in the cloak of threat. She sensed the crowd around her shift, a collective pulse of mixed emotions, curiosity, wariness, hope. "What is your agenda?" Lisa called out, her voice stronger than she felt. "We're not looking for trouble. We're not looking to be someone's pawn. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm not a monster, girl. People like me can get things done. People like you have the heart. Together, we could create something powerful. Lisa swallowed hard, her pulse drumming in her ears. What did powerful really mean? Did it mean fighting for their rights, or was it something darker, something she couldn't yet grasp? We don't need criminals, a voice piped up from the back, steady but wary. We need change from the ground up, not from underground deals. The tall man chuckled softly, the sound deeply unsettling. What if I told you most change happens behind closed doors? You think you could do it alone? You think protesting will make a difference? You're brave, but bravery often needs backing. The crowd shifted, still riding the edge of uncertainty. Marcy leaned closer to Lisa, her eyes wide. What do we do? She whispered. I don't know, Lisa replied, feeling an overwhelming blending of emotions swirling inside her. But we have to keep our heads. The officer stood by, his expression unreadable. Were they allies in this moment of crisis, or merely caught up in the drama? Suddenly, the young boy from earlier stepped forward. I'll listen. I want to help if it means we can stop people being hurt. Lisa felt the faces around her soften, the collective focus turning toward the boy's unyielding courage. But how far was everyone willing to go? Would they accept help from those who lurked in the shadows? Make them an offer, the tall man said, leaning closer, his eyes shining in the dim light. Show them what you have in mind. Show them they have real support. A drug of adrenaline coursed through her veins, a powerful mix of fear and risk. But this was also a chance for change. Together, she shouted, her voice rising above the rest, we have to decide what kind of allies we want. If we trust anyone, we have to know what they stand for. As whispers began to break like waves against the shore, the tall man's gaze sharpened, a flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. Interesting approach. But you might want to choose your next steps very carefully. The crowd resonated with doubt, but also a hunger for transformation. As emotions ebbed and flowed, Lisa felt the threads of destiny woven around her. The questions were swirling like autumn leaves who were allies. What lay ahead, and in that delicate moment of choice, the uneasy truth loomed. What would they trade for change? The moon hung high, casting a silvery glow over the alley as Lisa stood at the forefront of the gathering, her heart racing. The tall man's words echoed in her mind, sparking a fire within her. What kind of allies do we want? The question rippled through the crowd, forming a collective heartbeat of urgency and uncertainty. There's power in this moment, Lisa declared, her voice slicing through the tension. But we have to decide what direction we want to take. Do we want to accept change or allow fear to dictate our choices? Marcy squeezed her hand, eyes wide with hope and trepidation. We can't go back, she whispered. Lisa nodded. They had all come too far, uncovered too many truths to retreat into the shadows again. The tall man smirked, a glimmer of admiration flickering in his gaze. You've got guts. But remember, change sometimes demands sacrifices. What are you willing to give? The air crackled with anticipation, every face trained on Lisa, waiting for her response. We're willing to fight. A voice rang out from the crowd and cheers erupted. This is our home. We stand together. The momentum surged, the energy palpable. Lisa felt invigorated, yet a familiar pang of fear curled in her stomach. It wasn't just about fighting, it was about creating a community where kindness triumphed over chaos, where love drowned out fear. The leather-clad woman stepped forward, her glare firm. We don't need you to dictate our change. We fight for our values, not under threats and empty promises. Her words pierced the brightness of the night, igniting something deep within Lisa. Enough. The tall man's voice boomed, but the crowd's resolve wasn't shaken. Lisa sensed a unity forming, a sea of fierce hearts merging into one unstoppable force. You talk about change, about power, but real power lies in the hands of the people. We choose how we rise, Lisa shouted, her voice echoing off the grimy walls of the alley. Our strength comes from standing together, from supporting each other. The sirens were still wailing, but now they felt like the backdrop to a rising anthem of hope. Faces in the crowd were glowing, conviction pouring from their eyes. They were willing to lift each other up, fight for what mattered. Suddenly, Jenna reappeared at Lisa's side, her presence grounding. "Not every hand we extend is a hand that will betray," she breathed, gaze steady on the tall man. "We want allies, not puppeteers." The moment hung thick with anticipation, and then an unexpected shift occurred. Instead of pushing further, the tall man looked around, gauging reactions. He took a step back, his earlier confidence wavering. "You've got fire, let us see how far it goes." "But know this," his voice dropped, low and serious. "In this game, there are no guarantees." With that, he motioned to his group, who lingered hesitantly. "You've got to choose wisely in this war," he added, a hint of warning hanging in the air. Yet the way he spoke almost felt like a challenge, enticing. Just then, the sound of officers approaching became sharper in the distance. The crowd turned, sensing the drawing lines between fear and opportunity once again. Lisa glanced at Marcy, reading the fiery determination mirrored in her expression. The leather-clad woman stood tall. "We stand ready. They can't sweep us aside anymore. This community must rise." As the officer's footsteps grew nearer, Lisa squared her shoulders. This wasn't just about Marcy or this night, it was about their future. Whatever happens next doesn't define us. How we respond, and what we stand for, sets the path. She felt the whispers around her, each voice rising stronger, connecting threads between hearts beating together. Marcy's voice joined in, stronger now. "It means we don't back down. We fight for each other." Heads turned, eyes locked. It became a tapestry woven in unity. The crowd stood together, embodying everything they had fought for, everything Lisa had dreamed of. When the police stepped into view, the officer's expression softened, an understanding forming as he observed the united front. "What is going on?" he asked, not as an enemy, but with curiosity. "We're standing against the injustices in our community," Lisa declared, her voice unwavering amidst the chaos. "We deserve to be heard." She could sense the shift in the atmosphere, the power of their collective spirit. One word crumbled barriers. They were no longer just individuals, but woven together by purpose. As the officer took a step closer, others nearby rallied in support. "We're not afraid. We're here to uplift one another, not break apart." The crowd surged with resilience, but still leaned upon a thread of uncertainty. What awaited in the face of authority? What happened next would determine their fate, a spark igniting into flame, or potential snuffed out by fear. The answer lay before them, shimmering with possibility as they stood united, a fortress against the night. In that moment, fear transformed to courage, apprehension turned to strength. Lisa gazed into the faces around her, hearts aligning in shared purpose. They were more than the sum of their struggles. Their community had found its voice. Together, she shouted once more, arms raised high, "We'll not just survive but thrive." And as if ripples across still water, hope surged throughout the crowd, wrapping around every heart, laughter mingling with determination. Lisa felt it, the heartbeat of change, resilient and alive. This was their moment to redefine the narrative, to reshape how they lived as a community. Together, they embraced the unknown, ready to step boldly into their future because hope, in its purest form, changes everything. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. This makes a huge difference. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this incredible ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of amplifying our voices together.